to focus on.
I don't know about you, Ed, but when I walk around London, I see these magnificent Victorian buildings, and you think maybe the workhouse, it wasn't such a bad thing, you know? Yeah. It's a way of getting, you know...
Yeah, well, I was going to say, this is what Hitler was going to do. I think you probably do need to err on the side of caution. Now, you know, I think a lot of the cases that we've had, I mean, Baby P, classic example, that we do need to err on the side of caution. I think there's
but the cases are relatively small, the ones that make big headlines, aren't they? I mean, but
the fact that they happen, you know, I mean, they should also...
My concern is you start off by saying, we never want a repeat of Devil Boys, so if this woman has a baby, we're going to take it away.
I think
and then by the end, you're going to have, this mother watches Jeremy Kyle, she's obviously unfit, let's take her children away. Let's take all the children away. I mean,
yeah, I mean, you could argue, if you don't agree with smacking, you could argue that I had an abusive childhood and that I should have been taken away from my parents. That my parents are great, you know, but by other people's standards, perhaps, you know, they smacked me when I was out of line, you know, and but I think who is it that's going to make these decisions? And also, I think if you're going to start saying we need to take these children into care, then we need to make the care system better. You know, you can't just... You know, you've got 60,000 people in care already, and the system fails them a lot of the time. So I think you can't just somebody who's at the head of a charity can make a sweeping statement and gain headlines, but it's not as simple as just saying that. It's a bit like when you say we should put them all in jail. You know, pickpockets should be put in jail, and everyone. But the jails are too full. You know, we need to have more money to have the infrastructure in place to deal with what...
Take the babies and get them, as when they get older, to build new jails for the pickpockets.
Build jails out of bad parents.
So many solutions here. I think Janet's is probably the most appealing of all, that rather than look at taking children away from bad families, we should address the issue of bad families earlier. But let's hear what you have to say. Maybe you think it's a good idea to take babies away from mothers who may end up letting their children run wild. Let's hear what you've got to say. Kirsty.
We have Louise first, and she's on line 2.
Louise, good morning.
Good morning.
So does whatever Martin Nery's on about here chime with you? Do you like the idea?
I do believe that children that are from bad families do need to be taken into care. I do agree with the comment of the infrastructure needs to be put into place.
Yeah.
But where I live, you see young mothers out all hours of the night, children in pushchairs, scantily clad. You see them swearing, and they have no guidance in place to teach these children when they're adults that there are repercussions for crime.
Well, now you're coming round to Janet's point of view, which is...
I am, yes. I don't agree, however, that you should really look into the system of always teaching young mothers before they have their children, because sometimes there are no teaching them. If they've had a bad life themselves, it's the only thing they know. And sometimes you can teach them in colleges, or you can teach them in mother and baby units, but they will go back out, they'll meet the boys, or whatever bad habits were there before, and they will creep back into their lives.
That's sort of the problem, isn't it, Louise, that if you don't start before the children are born, then I think you're right. There is a self-fulfilling prophecy that somebody who has been abused as a child is likely to repeat the pattern, and somebody who's been badly educated in childcare is likely to repeat the pattern. So if you can adopt, if you like, the whole family, then I think you've got a better chance of breaking that cycle.
Potentially, yes. I just think where I live, you see people that just don't want to learn. And there are families that repeatedly breed and have more and more children and don't teach them. They don't go to school, they don't do homework with them, and you are breeding the next society of criminals, pickpockets, etc. You are breeding the next society of degenerates, so to speak.
OK. Thank you, Louise. Let's have another.
Sean is on line 1.
Morning, Sean.
Hiya.
What's your take on this?
What I see is I was in care all my life because I was a problem kid myself, and I think myself, since I've had my little one, I've totally changed, and it actually helps you in changing so you can do the best for your kids. So I don't understand when someone can turn around and say, I'm going to take your child away from you when they're born. It's not going to help the person, and it makes them worse. And if you put your kid in care, it makes your kid hate you and look at you like they've done something wrong. They haven't done nothing wrong, and it makes them hurt inside.
But Sean, Martin Nery, sort of, I watched him being interviewed this morning, and he sort of was at pains to say, the secret to this is we've got to get them to adoptive parents as quickly as possible. My concern is that the care system has been in chaos for as long as I've been aware of it. If adoptions and everything was sorted out, it ran more easily, more efficiently, more safely, then perhaps this guy's got a chance. But in the current state, you would suggest that putting somebody into care until they got adoption would be bad news.
Yeah, if it's necessary, I agree. If it's like death or life and death, but when it's someone that's just gone off the rails and they can't control themselves, I'm not being funny. I was one of them people.
I was just going to say, Sean, what were your parents like? I mean,
my parents.
Yeah.
My dad left us when I was about 3 years old for another lady. My mum used to go with drug addicts, and I was abused. But I think...
So, Sean, sorry, Sean, can I ask you another question? So, in the light of that, if your mother was to have another baby, let's go back a few years to when you were young, and your mother was to have another baby. This guy, Martinelli, I mean, straight down the line, he would say that baby should be taken away from your mother and put into care and adopted as quickly as possible.
I actually don't agree with that, because I'm not being funny. My mum had a second chance with my sister. They took my brother away.
Yeah.
And then when they gave her a second chance, they said to her, look, you've got to get rid of the gentleman involved and raise your kid. Look, this is your last chance. This is the way you've got to do it. And I'll tell you something, she got rid of that gentleman in question, and she has brought up my half-sister and done a blinding job. And my half-sister, has turned out the best, because me and my sister ended up hating everyone because we were split up and put into care. Where we didn't have a family, my sister went into adoptive home and I went into a boarding school, and it didn't work. It didn't help us. It just made us rebel and hate everyone.
How fascinating,
Yeah.
Sean.
So what was the turning point? Was it your mother's strength of character, or was it sympathetic social workers who helped her to see the way forward?
It was the social workers saying,
Sounds
look,
like it.
I'm not being funny, we know you can be a good parent, you've just got to get rid of. They need to teach people, instead of taking their kids and making them hate people, they need to turn around and say, look, before you give birth, this is the classes you've got to go on, this will help you. My missus had postnatal depression with our little one, and she didn't know nothing about it, but she had classes before, like postnatal depression classes afterwards, and then before we had parenting classes. And that was the best thing we could ever done.
Do you know what, Sean? I'm absolutely made up you picked up the phone today. I really am. I've been watching... I've been watching Martinelli on the BBC giving his views, and then to hear your story and your sister's story and your mum and this idea, Martinelli's whole philosophy seems to be forget about second chances, they don't work. And here we have you on.
Well, it's nice to
testament
hear
that second chances
speaking
can
well
work.
of social workers.
And I was going to say, and bigging up social workers. Thank you, Sean.
I think it's a very interesting call. I'm glad we took it, because I'd have to say, I didn't say it, but I felt that the previous caller, the woman who was talking about, you know, they're bringing up the next generation of degenerates, and I just felt she was basically saying, oh, they're out late at night.
Yeah,
and
therefore they're
swearing.
bad.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sorry. People have the right to be a bit chavvy if they want to. You know, it's not. It's
also
actually,
we-
it's fair.
we-
You can actually put them in care. Their parents are swearing and not doing their homework. with
We're
them.
all that
You know,
society too, aren't we? We are the same society that walks past those children and
Yeah,
might
absolutely.
say, your little one might be better with
Absolutely.
a coat on.
Yeah, absolutely. Get involved rather
Yeah.
than stand there and moaning about it. Brilliant call. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see how we do on our next talking point, one that's irritating me enormously. This is the Real Woman model. I want to get your thoughts on Lizzie Miller. Now, Glamour magazine, there she is, has been swamped with praise from readers. Delighted to see her, this real woman, modelling at last. But just how real is she? I mean, she has a tiny roll of fat on her belly. She's also 5'11" tall, a size 12. Does Lizzie Miller represent you? 0207 173 5555. That's the number for your thoughts. Is this real woman model really real after all? We'll find out if you can follow that thread after the ads.
What happened to Soapmaker Dove's profits after its 2004 Real Beauty campaign? It went up, went down, or stayed the same? Find out after the break.